All right, so you know how much we love unpacking these complex topics, right? And this article you sent about the Partnership for Global Inclusivity on AI.
PGIAI.
Yeah, PGIAI, it's a mouthful. But it's got some really interesting ideas. We usually think about AI as this, Silicon Valley thing.
Right.
But this partnership is talking about using AI for global impact, particularly in the developing world. What's the deal with that?
Well, it's interesting because it's not just talk. The players involved are really impressive.
Yeah, I was going to say, I noticed some big names on that list.
We're talking the U.S. State Department, the UN, and then a who's who of tech giants.
Yeah.
Google, Microsoft, Amazon, you name it, they're probably involved.
Okay, so this isn't just some small-scale project here. We're talking about governments and any major tech companies teaming up, this PGIAI. What are they actually trying to do?
So they've zeroed in on three main areas: compute, capacity, and context.
All right, break it down for me. Compute sounds, well, pretty technical.
Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to bake a cake. You've got all the ingredients, but you need an oven.
Right.
Compute is like the oven for AI. It's the raw processing power you need to run these complex algorithms.
Ah, okay.
And it can be incredibly expensive, especially for researchers and developers in developing countries. This partnership wants to make that compute power more accessible.
So it's about leveling the playing field, making sure everyone has the tools they need to participate in the AI revolution.
Exactly. But it's not just about handing someone an oven and saying, good luck. You need to know how to use it.
Right. You can't just throw technology at a problem and expect it to magically solve everything.
Exactly. And that's where capacity comes in. It's about training, education, empowering people to actually develop and implement AI solutions in their own communities.
So we've got the tools, the compute, and the skills, the capacity. But there's a third piece to this puzzle: context. What's that all about?
Well, context is about making sure that AI is developed and used in a way that's sensitive to different cultures, languages, and local needs.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Think of it this way. An AI trained to diagnose diseases in, say, a bustling city might not work as well in a rural village with limited healthcare infrastructure.
Ah, I see. So you need to consider the context in which the AI will be used.
Exactly. One size fits all doesn't really work with AI.
Yeah, that makes sense. You need to tailor the AI to the specific situation. But all this talk about access and training, it can't be cheap. What kind of investment are we talking about here?
Well, that's the thing. It's not just about good intentions here. This partnership comes with a serious financial commitment. We're talking over $100 million pledged so far.
$100 million. So it's not just symbolic. They're actually putting some serious money behind this. But who's putting up the cash? Give me some specifics.
It's a real global effort. You've got governments and tech companies all over the world chipping in.
Okay.
For example, the U.S. State Department alone is putting up $10 million.
Just the State Department?
Yeah, just for AI access. And then another $23 million on top of that to promote responsible AI use worldwide.
Wow. Okay, so the U.S. government's putting their money where their mouth is. But what about those private companies? What are some of the commitments that really stand out?
Well, Amazon, for one, is committing $10 million in credits for their cloud computing platform.
Okay, so what does that actually mean? $10 million in credits?
So basically, it gives researchers and developers, especially those who maybe don't have the resources themselves, access to the same kind of computing power that Amazon uses.
Oh, I see. So they're basically giving them the keys to the kingdom, or at least to a really high-tech server room.
Exactly. And then you have Google. They're making a huge splash with this $120 million global AI education fund.
$120 million just for education.
Just for education. And that's on top of their existing investments in AI for sustainable development.
Wow.
It shows how important they think AI literacy is for everyone.
Yeah, they're not just trying to develop the technology, they're trying to build a whole ecosystem around it.
Exactly. And then you've got companies like Meta, formerly Facebook, right? They're investing heavily in open source AI.
Open source AI, so like open source software, but for AI.
Exactly. It's about making their AI tools and platforms freely available for anyone to use or modify.
Interesting. So what's the advantage of that?
Collaboration. Customization. It means developers anywhere in the world can take these tools and adapt them to their own specific needs and contexts.
Ah, so it's about making AI more democratic, more adaptable.
Right. It could lead to a much wider range of applications.
That makes a lot of sense, especially with that focus on context we talked about earlier. This is really fascinating stuff. We've got this massive global effort to make AI more inclusive, more accessible.
It is exciting. But,
But there's always a but, right?
well, we have to remember this is still very new technology. There are a lot of unknowns.
That's true. And with any powerful tool, there's always the potential for unintended consequences. It's not all going to be positive, is it? It's like they say, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
We've talked a lot about this partnership for global inclusivity on AI, the players, the money, the goals. But how can AI actually deliver on this promise of a better future? Where do we see the real-world impact?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The good news is the potential is everywhere. We could spend hours talking about all the possible applications of AI for good.
So give me an example. What's a concrete example of how this could actually play out?
Okay, imagine a doctor in a remote village, maybe somewhere in Africa, who has a patient with a really rare disease. With AI, they could potentially diagnose and even treat that patient right there, even if they've never seen a case like it before.
Wow, so no more needing to send patients on those long, expensive journeys to urban hospitals for specialized care. Exactly. Or let's talk about education. AI-powered tutoring systems could give personalized lessons to students no matter where they live, no matter their background.
It's like having a personal tutor for every child. What about other areas? I know you sent over some information about AI and climate change. What's happening there?
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
AI is already analyzing massive amounts of climate data, right?
Yeah.
It helps us predict natural disasters more accurately, and it helps us come up with strategies to deal with the effects of climate change.
So we're talking about everything from predicting hurricanes to making our energy grids more efficient.
Exactly. AI could be a game changer for a more sustainable future. And the exciting thing is, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even begun to explore all the possibilities.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it, but I also keep coming back to this. Every coin has two sides, right? AI is powerful, and with that power comes some potential downsides as well.
Absolutely. We can't just focus on the positives and ignore the risks. We need to be very thoughtful and cautious as we develop and use AI.
So what does that look like in practice? How do we make sure AI is used responsibly?
Well, for starters, we need to look at the data we're using to train these AI systems. If the data is biased, the AI will be biased. And that can have serious consequences in the real world.
Right, garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Exactly. And we need to have open, honest conversations about the ethics of AI. How do we make sure it's used for good? How do we prevent it from being used to harm people?
Those are tough questions, but it sounds like the Partnership for Global Inclusivity on AI is at least thinking about these things.
They are. And that's encouraging. It's not just about developing AI for the sake of it, but about making sure it benefits everyone.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What can the average person, who might not be a tech expert, do to be a part of this conversation about the future of AI?
Stay informed. Stay curious. Ask questions. The future of AI isn't being decided in some secret lab somewhere. It's being shaped right now by all of us. Read about it. Talk about it. Don't be afraid to share your thoughts and concerns.
That's a great point. The future isn't predetermined. We're all writing the story together. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive on AI for now. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.